Color had been in movies before, but nothing looked quite like Technicolor. Introduced in the 1930s, it wasn't just a way to capture color on film. It was a whole process for shaping how a movie felt. The dyes created images that were bold, saturated, and impossible to mistake for real life. Skies looked deeper, shadows richer, reds and greens almost glowing on the screen. For directors, it was more than a novelty. It was a way to tell stories through pure style. And in this video, we'll look at some of the lesser-known and underappreciated Technicolor films that show just how powerful the process could be. Nicholas Ray's Johnny Guitar is one of the strangest westerns Hollywood ever produced, and one of the most striking. The story centers on Vienna, played by Joan Crawford, a tough saloon owner whose place attracts outlaws and drifters. Among them is Johnny Guitar, a former gunslinger, and her lover, played by Sterling Hayden. When a local robbery ends in murder, Vienna's rival seizes the chance to turn the townsfolk against her, leading to a showdown that's as much personal vendetta as frontier justice. The skies are painted in impossible shades of blue and orange. The costumes burst with clashing reds and purples, and Crawford commands the screen in stark, sculpted lighting that makes her look mythic. It doesn't aim for naturalism. It feels closer to a fever dream, where the colors reflect the film's intensity. What could have been a straightforward Western instead explodes with color, and Johnny Guitar shows how Technicolor could push a Western into the realm of myth. By the early 1950s, John Ford was cemented as one of Hollywood's greatest Western directors. But in The Quiet Man, he uses Technicolor in a way that feels completely different from the Westerns he was known for. The story centers around a tired American ex-boxer, played by John Wayne, who returns to his native hamlet in Ireland to win the hand of a spirited young woman, played by Maureen O'Hara. He is confronted by strict local customs and the woman's belligerent brother. The film soaks in the rolling greens of Ireland, bright village cottages, and skies that seem to shift with the story's mood. The color is inviting, almost nostalgic, like looking at a memory polished brighter than real life. Cinematographer Winton Hoke, who had worked with Ford on previous war films, treats the Irish countryside as though it were a character of its own, painting the land with warmth and pride. The film shows how the process could create not just spectacle, but atmosphere, to create an entire world viewers wanted to step into. King Vidor's Duel in the Sun is the kind of Technicolor epic that earned the nickname Lust in the Dust. The story follows Pearl Chavez, played by Jennifer Jones, who is sent to live with distant relatives after her father's execution. There, she's pulled into a dangerous love triangle between two brothers, the brooding Lute, played by Gregory Peck, and the more refined Jesse, played by Joseph Cotten. The result is a spiral of passion and violence that feels as overheated as the desert setting. The film is pure excess, and its Technicolor matches the tone. Landscapes blaze in scorching reds and oranges, costumes scream with bold contrasts, and every close-up feels larger than life. Subtlety was never the goal. Instead, Duel in the Sun pushes Technicolor to its limits, turning melodrama into spectacle and making emotions burn right off the screen. Leave Her to Heaven is one of the most unsettling Technicolor films ever made, precisely because it looks so inviting. Jean Tierney, who won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance, stars as Ellen, a wealthy socialite whose obsessive love for her husband curdles into jealousy and control. On the surface, the film is drenched in dazzling color, brilliant blue skies, sunlit lakes, and interiors polished to perfection. Cinematographer Leon Shamroy also won an Oscar for his work here, and it's easy to see why. Every frame gleams like a painting. But that brightness hides a story of cold-blooded cruelty, including one of the most chilling scenes of the 1940s, staged in broad daylight. Unlike the shadow-soaked noirs of the same era, Leave Her to Heaven uses Technicolor to create a gorgeous mask, and then slowly peels it back to reveal something poisonous underneath. The contrast is what makes it unforgettable. Bend of the River takes the rugged landscapes of the Pacific Northwest and turns them into a Technicolor showcase. Jimmy Stewart stars as Glyn McClintock, a reformed outlaw leading a wagon train of settlers through dangerous territory. What begins as a story of redemption quickly spirals into betrayal and survival, with Stewart caught between his violent past and the chance to build a new life. The Technicolor here isn't dreamy or romantic. It's raw, towering evergreens, snow-capped mountains, and wide rivers all pop with a vividness that makes the frontier feel both beautiful and unforgiving. Director Anthony Mann's westerns were known for their grit, but in Bend of the River, the color heightens the drama, turning nature itself into a constant, looming presence. Powell and Pressburger's Black Narcissus is one of the most visually overwhelming Technicolor films ever made. The story follows a group of Anglican nuns who travel to a remote Himalayan outpost to establish a convent, only to find themselves unraveling in the thin mountain air. On paper, it's a quiet drama, but on screen, it's pure fever dream. The mountains, recreated on sets in England, are bathed in rich purples, deep oranges, and shimmering whites that feel otherworldly. Skies glow in impossible hues, while interiors pulse with bold shadows and color contrasts that mirror the characters' inner turmoil. The effect is claustrophobic and hypnotic, a Technicolor vision of beauty turning into madness. For many, Black Narcissus is the film that proved Technicolor could do more than decorate. It could unsettle, seduce, and disturb all at once. Douglas Sirk's All That Heaven Allows is a 1950s melodrama that looks as rich as it feels. Jane Wyman plays a wealthy widow who shocks her small town by falling for her younger gardener, played by Rock Hudson. What unfolds isn't just a love story, but a clash with gossip, family pressure, and the rigid rules of suburban life. The Technicolor images give it an extra punch. Autumn leaves flare in fiery reds and golds. Winter scenes glow in icy blues, and quiet interiors feel heavy and suffocating in their muted tones. Every shift in color seems tied to Carrie's emotions, pulling the audience into her world. Sirk's gift was using style to heighten the drama, and here the visuals make every choice Carrie faces feel bigger, sharper, and impossible to ignore. Released in 1946, Powell and Pressburger's A Matter of Life and Death tells the story of a British pilot, played by David Niven, who cheats death only to find himself caught between the world of the living and the afterlife. The film famously contrasts two realms. The afterlife is shown in shimmering black and white, while the world of the living bursts with Technicolor. Reality looks more vivid, more alive than heaven itself. The reds of a rose, the warm glow of sunlight, the richness of the English countryside. It's as if the film is insisting that life on Earth, in all its fleeting color, is the greater miracle. Few films use Technicolor so purposefully, not just to dazzle the eye, but to make a philosophical point about existence itself. Black Orpheus takes Technicolor to Brazil, setting the ancient Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice against the backdrop of Rio de Janeiro's carnival. The story follows a streetcar conductor and a young woman who fall in love during the festival, all while fate looms over them. What makes the film unforgettable is how Technicolor soaks up the sights and sounds of Brazil, swirling costumes, pulsing parades, and sunsets that seem to burn off the screen. The color doesn't just capture a place, it creates an atmosphere, one that feels dreamlike and alive at the same time. Winner of the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, Black Orpheus shows how Technicolor could step outside Hollywood and still deliver pure cinematic spectacle. It's not just a love story, it's a kaleidoscope of music, dance, and color that pulls you straight into the heart of Brazil. Dario Argento's Suspiria might seem like an outlier here, and while it's more well-known amongst art house circles, it absolutely deserves more recognition. It's one of the most jaw-dropping uses of color ever put on film. Released in 1977, it follows a young American dancer, played by Jessica Harper, who arrives at a prestigious European ballet academy, only she discovers it hides a nightmarish secret. Hallways glow in deep reds, greens, and blues that shift with the character's fear, turning ordinary spaces into something supernatural. Shadows are thick, walls seem to breathe, and every frame looks like a nightmare painted in neon. By the time it was restored in 4K, critics were calling it one of the most beautiful horror films ever made. It's proof that Technicolor's impact didn't fade with Hollywood's golden age. It found new life in the most unexpected places. That wraps up our look at some of the most underrated Technicolor gems. Between the 1930s and the 1970s, studios around the world used the process to create films that were bold, colorful, and unforgettable in their own way. But of course, there are plenty more. Did we miss one of your favorites? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear which Technicolor films left the biggest impression on you.